want to start with Kamal. I stalked your Instagram before this, and it said that you were done with music before you got tapped for this project. And I just kind of want to ask you a little bit about that headspace you were in and what made you say yes to this project.
I used to be an artist myself, and I had spent a lot of time, what felt like to me, working in the shadows and kind of just pouring my whole heart and soul into something that it didn't feel like was returning back to me. And that was the moment that I realized that it was probably the wrong thing for me to do, because I shouldn't do something I love looking for some reciprocity there. Like, the whole point is I'm just doing what I love. So upon realizing that and realizing that I was getting jaded, I was like, I don't need to do this. I can go find a job somewhere, and instead of paying to do this, because being an artist is incredibly expensive, I can just do this for fun and enjoy it and love it again. And so I quit. And a few months later, I randomly, happened across Kehlani in a very small club downtown, which who would ever guess that? And I actually never brought up music to her. We were really, really close, really cool. And she brought it up to me because she saw, I had music on my page from when I was being an artist. And she asked me, like, so what's up with this? And I was like, yeah, no, I quit. Like, I'm about to go corporate and just make my money there. And she was like, oh, yeah, you're crazy. Like, come work on my album. And why the hell would I say no to that? So I did what anyone would do, and I just completely poured my heart and soul into. It's just when you feel like you worked so long for something and no one paid attention, you have an opportunity to, like, actually see the fruits of your labor. And while I don't feel like you should take on, artistic exploits for the fruit, it's much better with fruit than no. So that was my perspective.
How instant was that reception to going corporate and to going, okay, no, I'll give it one more shot? Did you have to think about it long, or did you?
Hell no.
Okay.
Yeah, work on my album. Bet. I sent the shit the same day. Yeah, I sent shit the same day. I was like, okay, well, here's what I'm working on. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't for a lack of love. I just felt like I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And I feel like maybe I just had to step out of the spotlight, and it didn't have to be me. And in the time where the couple months that I had quit, I realized that I didn't necessarily care for the circus anyway. So had I gotten what I was working so hard to get, I might not have even enjoyed it. I might have fumbled it. I might have fucked up. Can I cuss? Yeah. I might have fucked it up. I might have, So everything happens the way it's supposed to. And it's just really on you to be a good steward of the gifts that you're given and be prepared for them should they come. So that's. Yeah.
Khris, you've had early success. Ariana Grande, her first album, you were in college when you were working on that? Yes, okay. You have 2 Grammy-winning songs. You worked with SZA and Snooze. Is there pressure in keeping that bar high in terms of success, in terms of when you're working on your next project, do you strive for success in accolades like that? Or how do you keep yourself grounded, not thinking about the bars that you hit?
Yeah, I want to win. I don't do this to lose, right? Like, I don't go into the studio and say, let's not make a hit. I think that there's a certain amount of balance, right? It's like being a producer. I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this since I was 15, 35. And I think that something I learned from being under Tony and Babyface, from that age to now, is that, as a producer, you're the coach. So if I come in, I know my goal is to win the game. My goal is to win championships. My goal is to have a winning season. But I can't put all that pressure on my kids or my team, my players, because sometimes it's easier to get them to lay one brick a day, and then you look up in a month and you have a castle versus saying, hey, we're going to set out to do a castle. So it's really managing people's minds and managing the load. Like, load management is a real thing. So yes, I know the end goal is to win and try to get Grammys. The same thing when we went in with Kehlani for this album. You know, it was a group of the Mighty Ducks. It was not a fucking group of like Max Martin and, you know, like top people that when we first started this project. Obviously, we brought in Tony, who's a top guy, and other folks like Dre and Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. But the core of this album was really kids writing together. It was the Kamals, it was the Dixons, it was the people who had not yet got the true accolades, you know, where they were. So when you're seeing that stage and you're looking at DK and you're looking at, you know, Kamal, and you're looking at even Kehlani herself to a certain extent, it's like, you know, it was the group of we're like the middle school team that, you know, we made it to the championship, and we put it together. I don't know if I articulated that purposefully, but it's the belief and the guidance and being a leader and being speaking to the champion in them that I think got everybody to where we are today, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to hear you talk about winning in terms of music and kind of setting that bar of that's what a championship looks like. I kind of like that mindset because it's this idea of you're going out there to do the best you can and create the best art possible, and then the reward is what the accolade is. Have you ever heard about, have someone pushed back against you by talking about art that way and saying, you know, you're supposed to be making great art, it's not about winning?
Yeah, but they just haven't won before. You know, I'm serious. It's like, I'm serious, and I'm not trying to be a jackass, but it's like, you talk like that because you're afraid. And there's people that I've worked closely with who speak like that because they're afraid to win, right? And when you come up under somebody like Babyface and you say, damn, this guy has 15 Grammys, or you come up under somebody like Tony, and Tony's like done every song, that, Omarion, Beyonce, this one, that one, right? Mario, like the soundtrack to your life, you start to realize it's like, no, there's an aggressive nature to having consistency. There's, you know, these guys want to win, and I think once again it goes into understanding load management. You can't put it on the artist because the artist is sensitive. So you got to do everything around them to guide them in the right way to where they don't feel pressure, but they're moving in the right direction. You know what I'm saying? It's a very nuanced dance, and the producers and record executives that understand the psychology behind it are the ones that continuously win, you know? Yeah.
I was going to ask you about, you've worked for Beyonce. Has the markers of success changed for you, or still striving always for that championship?
I just think for me, the definition of success has changed over time. In the beginning, it was the awards, it was the money, it was being able to take care of my family, it was all of that. Now I look at it like, what is success without a successor? You know what I mean? Like, I've told him this a million times, but like, nothing makes me more proud than to get to watch these guys win. I'm probably one of the only people you'll ever hear that kind of stuff in the industry where I'm more excited about him doing bigger than me than anybody. And it's the truth. I've told him this privately. It's not even a public thing, but it's a different mindset because, yes, getting the awards and, you know, getting the success and all that, it feels great. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the reality is I realize that once you get it, the goalpost tends to move. So you say, okay, I got to get a Grammy. Well, you get one. You still got to get up tomorrow and do the work. You get what I'm saying? It's just like a championship, like you said. Like, you know, right now everybody's celebrating the Knicks, but in a couple months they got to get right back to work and do it all over again. And so in this game of life and this game of music that we do, the reality is that the goalposts tend to shift. And so for me, I started to learn that the journey was actually the goal instead of the other way around. I try to keep making certain things the goal. And then I realized that it doesn't make you happy, because that's really what you're looking for ultimately. You're looking to be happy, you're looking to be content. But if you make those things the things that validate you, then you also got to die when they don't happen to you. And to me, that's not the way to live. I like to live in a way where I take everything that God blessed me with and I give it to people like him and to him. And whatever knowledge that is or whatever experiences is, whatever connections I have, I love to watch them do what they do and then just give them a moment to shine because I see how he does it for other people. And then we start to build a lineage and a legacy. And that's the kind of stuff that to me is more important. So to say that success is important, yes, but just the definition for me is just slightly different.
Yeah, the mentorship I want to talk about a little bit later, but you have really cultivated this, I don't want to say father-like relationship, but you teach, and I think, who was your mentor, or did you have one, or why was it so important for you to take that role on?
Oh, that's a great question. So I had people that I looked up to, but I also tried to do the things that I wish I had. So I can't really say that I had necessarily a mentor in the industry. I just had a lot of hiccups along the way. And I tried my best to be the thing that I knew that I needed. I believe your first placement we did was Boyz II Men, and he was in high school, you know. And I purposely, when we did the record, made sure that I stayed out of the room. It was very intentional because it was his record, he started, and I wanted to make sure that he built the confidence he needed to start making the right decisions and be in a pressure situation and still be able to make the decisions with people who've already been successful, who've already been known, and watch him go ahead and do what he had to do. And then he came to me and asked how things went, and we talked about it. And now to be able to see how clear he is and concise he is on his decision-making, it's all part of how the development started. So to me, it was very intentional. But I also look at it like the deeper part of it for me is that the music is only as good as the people who make it. So I try my best to surround myself with great people first. And when we get to do these dope things together, like we hang out outside of music. And music just happens to be a byproduct of what we do. And then when we get in the room, we know our roles, we know when to fall back, we know when to let him take the lead, we know when to let him take the lead. There's no egos in the room. And so because of that, we just try to make sure that we handle things a little bit different. And I wanted to make sure that as a mentor, the first way to do that is by example. Because he gets to look at me and see where he's going to be in the next 10 to 15 years. Or even supersede me. And same with Kamal. So to me, it's better to kind of lead by example and also give them enough freedom to fly and let them do what they do. Just celebrate them when they do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everyone wants to know, like, how do they find a mentor like you?
It's a godsend. I'm sorry to say that. Like, I get asked that a lot, but the reality is, no, and I'm not even talking about me.
He's an angel.
I don't mean it like that, but I'm saying I'll use Khris again as an example. Like when we first met, again, like he said, he was in high school, and he had came to me and played me some music or whatever, and I had given him some suggestions on things that I felt he needed to improve on. I was like, it's good, but if you do X, Y, and Z, I believe you have something there. Just go ahead and work on it. And he did exactly what I asked him to do. Like almost to the month, like 6 months later, he came back. He's like, and played some more records, and it was exactly what I had asked him to do. And then I got to watch his work ethic. I got to watch how he was with his family. I got to watch, there was a lot more to it than doing the music. I got to watch how he was a leader in his community, around his friends. There was so much more to it than just like, okay, now I'm gonna mentor this guy, you know what I mean? And just watching him do what he did was like, it was almost like we were cut from the same cloth, because I did the same thing. I went to college and was grinding out in college trying to figure out music at the same time, and he did the same thing. And so there was a lot about our story that was very similar. And I also knew that I felt like it was just very simple for me. It was easy for me to fall into line like a big brother. And it just kind of happened that way. And then again, you get to meet people like Kamal and a lot of other, Leon Thomas and all these other great people that I've gotten to work with. It's all because I just got to watch their character and their integrity first. And then the music was just a byproduct of that.
Khris, were you in the market for a mentor, or how did you, if you were in high school, you just were like, knock, knock?
I was just hustling.
Yeah.
So for me, I knew I need to find a way in. And You know, we got connected. Was it through Neil? It was through Neil Pogue, my godfather. Well, no, the first time we got connected, it was three of us. It was a trio of producers. It was me, my boy Al, and this kid named Derek. And it was Derek's uncle that introduced us to Tony. And Tony told us we sucked. And then we had to go back and do our edits. And then I think I lost Tony's number. Something happened, or maybe I was catching up with him, but he ran into my godfather, Neil, the second time. And then Neil was like, yo, you should listen to the guy's stuff again. And because Khris has been taking the stuff that you said seriously. And then we went in and Tony introduced the Babyface. But I think the reality of it is you got to find people who do what you want to do. So if you want to be the best songwriter in the world, then you need to go find the best songwriters in the world that you are fans of, bang on their damn door, send DMs, show up at the studio, whatever it is you got to do to get in front of them. You know, I don't care if it's annoying. Like, if it's meant to be, it'll be. I mean, there's people who have hounded me. My assistant is in here somewhere, Ryan. I've known Ryan for like 6-7 years. The first 2 years of Ryan hitting me, I didn't really have any moves for him. And then one day, something aligned and was like, yo, can you help me with this? And then Ryan's been rocking with me ever since, you know? And so sometimes it's about the right timing, but you have to be aggressive with your approach. And you also have to make sure your product is good, right? Like, if you got shitty songs, don't be trying to shop them or show them to people and pass it off like it's the hot shit. Like, you gotta be self-aware, because me as an executive or me as a producer or writer, I'm looking at opportunity. So if your stuff is hot, it's literally 1 degree of separation from me calling Kehlani from being like, hey, I got this song from this kid that's dope, you should cut it, right? So, like, you want to make sure that you're prepared for your opportunity, or whoever. It could be Bieber, whoever it is I'm working with. So that's another thing. I think a lot of times we don't really, what I notice is that creatives don't really put their music through a litmus test, right? It's like your mama and your auntie, your uncles think that it's hot, or, you know, and so therefore you think that it's hot, but it's like you got to really surround yourself with people who are going to critique and mold you in the community. Because before, you know, at a certain point it became like our group, it was me, Leon, Ariana, Taylor Parks, Victoria Monet, Tommy Brown. Like, we all kind of came up together. So it was the same class of folks, and we didn't have no money, we didn't have nothing. We were just making music. And so, but we were able to kind of mold each other, if that makes any kind of sense. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, community and just making sure your stuff is ready when you're presented with the opportunity, because it could change your life in a second, literally.
Yeah. Well, how do you find collaborators that you know you can gel with, or how do you seek that out beyond looking for a mentor? How do you just looking online, or how did you?
Yeah. So my career was kind of like at the beginning of the online pop when it came to streaming and, you know, digital upload and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of our friendships and a lot of our interactions just came from online. The thing that's kind of missing now is that, you know, there is no more record plant, right? And record plant, like Mike, I know you know, right? Like they used to have. Oh, Mike is here too. Shout out, Mike. There used to be like 6 rooms going. So you have Chris Brown in one room, Bieber in another room, Bruno in another room, Selena Gomez over here, this one over there, that one over, and you can kind of just show up to the studio and kind of work your wiggle. You know what I'm saying? And just kind of, I got beats or I got whatever, and kind of, you know, sit in the room and you know, somebody like Khris, it's 1,000 motherfuckers in the room, so they don't know who's there for what. So if you can kind of get your chance to hustle on the aux and it's hot, he might cut a record. You know what I'm saying? So we don't have those kind of places of community anymore with the studios. Everybody's kids are making music in their room. They're not really collaborating with folks in person. They're maybe sending stuff back and forth. So, you know, trying to meeting people online is great, but trying to find a central place to actually interact in person is what's important. But yeah, I guess online forums would be, you know, there was a group that I worked with named Brockhampton, and they all met being on a forum of Kanye fans, and they put together a super group off of just being, you know, Kanye fans, and they were a massive group at the time. So yeah, so I mean, I think online, but it's trying to move it from online to in person as fast as you can, so that way you can kind of, it's like dating, so you can see if you're compatible. And also just reaching out of necessity. Don't necessarily rely on like the tools of AI and the digital tools are great. But like, if you need a piano player, find a piano player. Get them to come over. If you need a horn player, get a horn player. Like wherever, like reach out, because there's so many people that are hungry and that are talented that you can utilize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for Kehlani's latest album, it sounds like it was a return to the 2000s, 90s classic R&B. Talk to me about how you guys grouped together to bring that in-person element that you were just talking about.
I mean, we work in person all the time. We rarely work virtual or by sending stuff. Earlier in her career, we used to be like send tracks and stuff, but probably since like 2016, every record that me and Kehlani have made together has been in person, from scratch. And that's a lot of records. But, you know, I think the whole point wasn't necessarily to do retro, it was just to do classic. You know, I have been a very big advocate of her reaching for the stars. I think sometimes artists can be afraid to reach their full potential because they're comfortable in the world they're in, especially when you're an artist who is birthed through the internet and you're looking at all the fucking comments and the shit that people are saying online, right? Like, there's an old school element to artists pre-internet, pre-digital age where they're just kind of like, you know, I'm the artist, I'm the shit, I don't really care what. Like, Beyonce ain't thinking about, it's Beyonce's internet. She don't care about what y'all saying. She gonna do a country album because she wanna do a fucking country album. Like, she's not worried about what the comments are gonna say. So I think when you're dealing with an artist that comes from that, it's a little bit harder for them to reach, because it's scary.
Yeah.
You know, if I have this thing that's working, I don't know how to, you know, and so it was very intentional for us to speak to our people, to speak to black music, to get back to the roots, to get back to what, you know, where she started, and which is just truthful records and from the heart. And it was very intentional. And I think with that, it was like, okay, cool. If we're going to do this the big way, then we need to go to the architects who made this happen. So that is calling Antonio Dixon, that is calling Babyface, that is calling Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, that is calling Dre Harris, that is calling Rich Harrison. Shout out Rich Harrison who did Crazy in Love for Beyonce and a bunch of records. And these are all guys that, yes, they're mega hit people, but it was almost kind of like Space Jam, where you calling them up, put your jersey on, we going to outer space. You know what I'm saying? It could come out of retirement, which, you know, it wasn't trying to force them to do what we do. It was like, do what you do, right? Like, your shit, we're fans of what you do. So here's these ideas, and let's just go what you do. And that was the whole goal, was just to capture a classic moment. And there was no contrivedness behind it. It was really just like, yo, this is the music that we love, and this is what we want to make, and we just want to write from the heart. And ended up doing what it did, and, you know, she's found success in it, and she's owning it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Folded. Obviously, that is the standout breakout track from the album. Kamal, can you talk a little bit about the background into how it came to be and your process in co-writing that?
Folded. It was really a huge leap of faith. We were in LA, and one day randomly, it was like, okay, we're going to Miami to work on this record that we want artists to work on. And it was like, let's go. And we all showed up, and there were some like roadblocks in the form of when we were working, it wasn't super, you know, it wasn't really streamlined. It's like me trying to form the sentence. Like, it's just not working right now. And like, literally, that's literally how it felt, trying to do it at first. And we ended up realizing, like, yo, we're working in this dungeon studio where Kay doesn't like to work in situations like that. She like prefers homes and like feeling like she's at home and just like, you know, letting the creativity stream. So we ended up saying, fuck the original idea, let's go have a camp. Since we're already out here, we already came across the fucking country. Let's just go have a camp, go make some music. We're in Miami, like, let's make the best of it. So we were doing that for a few days. I believe it was day 3. Dre was playing some ideas that I believe he and DK had started. Shout out to them. And yeah, she heard it and it was immediately like, let's go. And, you know, from there it was really just history. It just all just unfolded, no pun intended, but, you know, just really genuinely, like, that's just exactly how it worked out. And it was just extremely just, everything just felt right. Everything felt right.
How fast did that come together? Like a few days or?
No, it was same day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was all done in, I mean, aside from like post-production and whenever finishing a record, but like the whole idea, all the words, all, you know, it was all done in one day. And in 5 hours, 6 hours.
Fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. It feels like we're kind of headed towards an R&B revival. Uptown Records, they're reviving that, home of Mary J. Blige and Jodeci. I think I mentioned earlier, Vibes back in print. Monica and Brandy went on tour. Usher and Chris Brown are on tour. Would you agree? I guess you've seen the ebbs and flows of the genre. Do you feel like R&B is making kind of a more mainstream kind of comeback?
I don't know if it ever left. I just think it has taken, like what Chris was saying, maybe it's gone back to the classic form. I've kind of been around long enough to see how music kind of goes in cycles anyway. It's about a 20-year cycle on most music anyway. And so usually and by that it usually means it skips a generation. So usually there's a generation that's tired of hearing what their parents are listening to, and they want to kind of rebel and do something different. And then they get older, and then they realize they start to have kids, and then their kids are like, well, what were you listening to? And then it turns into this whole thing. So that's usually how music tends to go anyway. So if you look back even in the 90s, like, that's when everybody started talking about the neo-soul era. Well, that just was 70s music. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything other than 70s music. They pulled the Fender Rhodes out, they pulled the Moog out, and all these things. That was just 70s music. So point being, I think we're just at that right time where people are wanting to hear the things like what Kay said to me was like, I want to do the album I grew up on. So for them, it's like, okay, well, what does that, I look at it as what does that feel like? More than even the progressions or the musicality of it, what does it feel like to you? And so it usually starts with, okay, let's listen to some of those records you grew up on, right? And as a producer, our job is to kind of start to dissect the elements that they love and start to implement them in a new way. And so, you know, for what I do, it's really great because, you know, being around these guys, it's like, okay, well, they kind of help to be my guardrails as to what they're listening to. And then I can also help them with the things that we listen to and say, well, that's not quite where it should be, or these melodies can kind of, let's challenge ourselves, you know what I mean? And so I heard Karis once said something that I completely agree with, and I'm going to kind of say it here. He said, when the older generation listens to the younger generation, they move faster among the older generation. And when the younger generation listens to the older generation, they move faster among the younger generation. And so that's really what we've done. The reason he's able to do what he does is because he listens. Mm-hmm. He's still a student. He's great at what he does, but he's still a student. I'm still a student. So it's like when we get in the room, that's why I said earlier, it's not about, we don't get in the room with egos. Like if something's not working, okay, well, you tell me what it is that's not working about what I did. Let's work at it and let's kind of dissect it and recreate it. So I think that there's a classic element that's coming back, which I love, which again, we talk about bridges and maybe song structure coming back to the way it used to be and adding a lot more backgrounds and harmonies and stuff like that, yes. But I think the real essence of it is the fact that we're getting back to the feeling and the honesty and the vulnerability. We got to a point where most artists, everybody was just too cool to love and too cool to hurt and too cool to dance and too cool to do everything. Everybody just goes, like even most of the places you go out now, everybody stands outside to walk inside and look at each other. It's like, it's crazy, I'm with you, it's crazy to me. Like, I would go to the club to sweat and then pick up a girl, you know what I mean? And sweat. No, you know what I mean? It's like, you real talk, like, you know, your goal was to have a great time. And it's like, I just didn't understand the mentality. And so it was like, well, let's try to figure out a way to bring that joy back and that honesty back and that vulnerability back. And there's nothing wrong with being a genre of hip hop and a genre of R&B. And the other thing that kind of personally annoys me is the fact that we even have a division within our genre. Like, I don't know of adult contemporary pop. Have y'all heard of it? So we're the only genre where somehow we get to age ourselves out of doing the music. It's the weirdest thing to me. Yeah, it makes no sense.
That's hip-hop's fault.
I completely agree. But, you know, Max Martin and those guys are not having a problem with the artists that they work with. But for some, yeah, exactly, they're still working. But for some reason, when I get to work with a Kehlani or an Ariana or whoever, it's like, it's looked at as like, oh my God, you're this legend that got to work with this young artist. Well, that's, to me, how music should be. We all working together. The best music we do is when we collaborate. And again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. So I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I'm really passionate about it. I think it's important that we get back to us, first of all, collaborating, but trusting each other in this process and realizing that the ego's got to be left at the door. I always say ego is just exiting God out. So we got to get to stop doing that kind of stuff. You like that? But we got to get back to the point where we start creating music again and trusting each other and trusting the people in the room. And again, there's no reason we can't have more great records like Kehlani's album. This is just a great blueprint. And not just the music, but the process was so amazing. And I think we just, hopefully, that's what I hope others get out of it, is not just the sound, but the process and the people that are working on the music and creating the music.
Yeah. With the idea of leaving egos at the door, do you find yourself gravitating towards a certain type of artist? Or for each of you, who do you feel kind of more drawn to or want to help make this type of music with?
I'm new. I want to work with everybody.
Yeah, I think it's like people who want to win. Like I can't want it more than you. And I'm past that point in my career. You know, so the people that want to win, the people that want to take it seriously and be competitive, I think those are the people that I want to work with. Yeah.
And having a clear vision?
Yeah, I mean, my job is to help you figure the vision out, you know? But I think that if you have the tenacity and you want to win, then I can do the rest. I think it's just sometimes, you know, artists are just, I'm here to vibe. Well, what the fuck is vibe? I don't know. Vibes don't pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't.
I stand corrected. What he said. That's why I be quiet. I be quiet and I just listen to them do everything. Yes.
But vibes don't, you know? So it's just, it doesn't work that way, you know? Yeah.
Okay.
And for me, it is, I completely agree with Khris, but I also look at it from a perspective as a producer. If it's a project that I'm not executive producing or overseeing the entire project, I look at it as a producer. I'm in the service industry. So my job is not necessarily to do what I want you to do, but to figure out what it is that's in your head and help you get it out. Because as an artist, your job is you're gonna be the one that's gonna have to sing this song, hopefully, the rest of your life. And you have to be excited about what you create. And a lot of artists don't necessarily speak music per se, but they know what they feel. And so a lot of times my job ends up being an interpreter and trying to figure out how to dissect what it is that they're hearing and then creating the thing that they are hopefully loving and then saying, okay, well, also with my experience, because I have had a history of being able to work with a lot of successful artists and having successful songs and stuff, like, okay, well, why don't we add this little bit of what I do to that recipe so that it actually works out. But I don't necessarily, it's a different mindset if I'm overseeing the project. I'm with Khris. It's like, if you don't want to win and if you're not going to be putting in 10 times the work that I am, then there's no point in us even doing this. Because it's hard enough to make it anyway. And if you're not clear on the fact that you want to win, that you want to be better than everybody else, that you want your stuff to stand, then you should probably go work with someone else because you're just wasting everyone's time at that point. Because then we'll have all these great songs that'll just be sitting in our laptops.
Fair. One thing I want to talk about is support and recognition for the work that you guys do as producers, as songwriters, and I noticed Kehlani has been so supportive in sharing in the success for this project in a way. On all of y'all's Instagrams, there's constant hype. It seems rare. And what is it like to have that artist back you so publicly, songwriters and producers on every step of that album?
For me, it's great because I came up in an era where everything was masked about who did what. You know, so unless you read credits, unless you really did your due diligence, you really didn't know who did what. Yeah, and so, and I kind of came before the Instagram era and before social media. So a lot of things was facade. A lot of who created the music was a facade. And so to me, it's beautiful when you see an artist who actually cares about making sure that you get the recognition for the work you did. Because truth be told, for us, that's how you get more work. Mm-hmm. You know, if people don't know that your work, it's crazy. People have come to me and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you've been working. I've been working for the last 20 plus years regularly. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people just didn't know because the artist would never showcase it. And then I'd have to, you know, and I'm not going to be the one posting every time that I'm working with an artist. So it was always very difficult for me, for people to know, unless it did some astronomical number or that it was actually being done. But with Kay, she was very intentional and been very deliberate about making sure that everybody that was a part of this process was recognized. And it has. It's helped us a lot. But I think it's really important that artists do that for all of us. Mm-hmm. Because there aren't, you know, people aren't looking at liner notes anymore. Everyone is swiping really quickly. So I think for any of you that are artists and creatives, make sure that you give credit to those where credit is due. There's nothing wrong with it. And it doesn't dim your light to shine it on somebody else for a second. Like, it's not hurting you at all. So I believe that that's a necessary part of this process. That, again, another reason why this project to me is so special is the process. It's not just the music. It's her, it's him, it's Dixon, it's all the other people that we worked on. It's the process that made it matter more to me than just the result of the project. But the project, okay, it's fire. I'm not gonna say it's not, but you know, it's all of that made this thing great.
I was going to ask, is it frustrating, or how do you not get discouraged when you don't get that credit, or it's not seen, and you're kind of seeing the song or something you work on blow up, and you're kind of left in the shadows?
What do you mean by not get the credit?
I mean, like, at least in terms of the celebration, or kind of, sometimes I think that you see a song do really well, and then the people that work on it are kind of left in the shadows, at least from a public perception of it. Or does that not happen to you?
I mean, you know, artists. Like, I think it's great. Kehlani's on the great side of showing love, and you know, but there's a closeness and friendship that she's developed with everybody that's been a part of it, right? And there's also an appreciation from being when, you know, Kehlani has had experiences where she's been on the outside of the industry and not necessarily so welcome, right? There's, as you know, if you're familiar with, you know, the past couple of years. So, you know, her level of appreciation is a real level of appreciation, right? So it's different. The other artists who I've had successes with, that may not be as vocal. I mean, they artists think about themselves, so you can't get too butthurt about it. It is what it is. Like, we're cool. We make music, and you know, we get a hit and a massive record, and I get you a Grammy. Then, you know, cool. But I mean, I'm not expecting you to be my friend, my buddy. You know, I think that's a big issue that people have, is that you get too close, and then you start feeling like they owe you things, and it's like, you know, take it if you're fortunate enough to get a hit record, and you're fortunate enough to get a Grammy Award-winning record, take your money and go make more money. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be trying to be all up in the mix with the artist. It's just not, you know, especially if you're trying to force it. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. How do you feel like you keep that wall up in terms of you're spending so much time, it's so collaborative, it's so emotional sometimes, and then kind of once it's done, it's done. Is it hard for you to kind of sounds like it's not very hard for you to kind of separate, but have you been in a situation where you thought that you were friends and then it's done?
I mean, yeah. I mean, not necessarily where I thought we were friends, but I think we had very early success. You know, we're friends. We're cool. It's not an issue. But we worked on a very big album when we were young, Leon and I. And I think, you know, when it came time to do the second album, Max Martin got involved, and the two black kids wasn't necessarily, you know, it was like, we gotta go pop. And it's like, the fuck? Like, you know, like, well, what the fuck does that mean, you know? And so I think you just kind of, we learned that, what was it, 19, 20, 21? So it's like, all right, I see what time it is. Like, you just can't really have tough skin. And then, years later, we work with that said artist, and then she has a great project again. So it's like, you just can't really get too butthurt about it. I just know how quickly shit changes. So for me, it's like, it's no hard feelings. Yeah.
And see, for me, then it also becomes about life balance, right? So you learn to separate your personal life and your business life. Yes, they can go ahead and cross every once in a while, and it does happen. But if you have a really stable personal life, like you have a really solid group of friends and a solid family life and all those things going on, you're going to work, and you're going to do your job, and then you go home. And so while the life of the job is going to do what it does, you also know that you have to make sure that you're prepared to take care of home. And when it's time to be at work, you handle work. So I've done my best to make sure that I've created balance in my life. I came up in an era where it was, I had to learn that lesson hard because I had misinterpreted our working relationship as family and brotherhood and all of these things. And then you get knocked down a couple of times. You're like, oh, it's really not. Like, if there's no check involved, we really aren't as close as I thought we were. You know what I mean? Or for whatever reason, or whatever thing comes up and you go, wow, it's not really that. It was a lesson I had to learn. But again, that goes back to what I'm saying about like my relationship with Khris. I try to make sure that they don't have to deal with the detours that I did. You know what I mean? That's just a lesson I had to learn, was like, okay, reality is I have to make sure that my personal life is my personal life, my business is my business. And I do my best to make sure that they have to stay separated just to protect it, and it protects my peace. I know that one of the lessons I learned, I was told early in me getting in the industry by Terry Lewis. He had told me this, when I first moved to LA, he said, keep the noise out of your life. He said, because music and noise do not compete. He told me, he said, the minute you, yeah, clearly, because I never forgot it. He said, if you keep the noise out of your life, he said, you'll realize that when it's time for you to go and get in for work, if you haven't kept the noise out of your life, the noise is going to be speaking while you're trying to create. That could be the phone. That could be you chasing money. That could be you looking at chasing women. Whatever the thing is for you that's noise, you're going to sit down and try to create, and you're going to be like, I can't do it. You know, it could be spending too much money and now trying to chase a hit because you need the money. Whatever it is that's noise for you, you have to learn how to regulate and keep the noise out of your life, because when it's time to create, again, music and noise they just don't work together. And so I had to learn that really, really early.
Terry gave you all that Socratic advice. he just told me to stay away from the hoes. Well, we're different people, bro. He had the premium package.
yeah, you got the premium package.
I'm like, damn, Terry Lewis.
Man, I need to get better at putting words together.
Yeah, I guess he was nicer than me or something. Yeah.
I actually had an interesting, because I was the homie. So, like, I had to learn how to seek out the advice of the people that were more tenured than I was. So I've had many conversations with Khris where it's like, it's not always going to be this. And, you know, when your first cut as a songwriter is voted, that's crazy. It's like, where the fuck do we go? Not where do we go from here, but it's just like, it's not always going to be like this. And thankfully, like, I'm autistic a little bit, so, like, I'm not super emotional anyway. So, like, I'm not going to just assume that I'm family with anybody that I'm spending any time around. So I was genetically set up to not be, like, to not take shit to heart. But, yeah, so I really had to seek out the people who would know better. And thankfully, I was also blessed with the ability to shut the fuck up and listen. So,
I mean, yeah, the thing with Kamal, and, you know, he's took this to heart, is that, you know, when you do have your first cut is like that big and that massive, you kind of skip the process. And so, you know, I've seen it happen to people on a tragic level, where they've gotten a big ass record at the first swing at bat, and never really understood how to do it again. And it's like shooting a basketball any kind of way and it going in the hoop doesn't make you a basketball player, right? Like the greatest shooter of all time, arguably Steph, can shoot from anywhere on the court because he understands balance, he understands flow, he understands speed, he understands counterbalance. There's a lot of different elements to the game that you learn from playing it every day. And so, you know, with the internet and with the accessibility of music, it has become easier for people to catch records. But I think you see far more situations where people catch records, artists catch records, and they can't do it again. So, you know, that's why mentorship is important. That's why, you know, not getting too high on your own supply is important. And Kamal's been really good at that. And he's continued to go into the studio and continue to expand. I mean, the kid's doing K-pop music and a bunch of other stuff just to expand his horizons. So, so you know, that's one thing, because anybody can get a fucking hit record. Anybody can do it. It's can you do it again and again and again? And it's the same thing with the Grammys. Just because you have a Grammy don't mean that you a multi-millionaire. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so it's like, you know, but getting to the Grammys again and again and again, that's the real thing. So, you know, and I think the more you understand the process and your formula, the easier it gets.
Speaking of noise, I want to ask about personal branding and this idea of our society wants everyone to kind of be a brand and market themselves. Have you felt a pressure to kind of add that layer, any of you, to kind of become a brand of yourself and getting you into certain spaces because you're so-and-so or you have so many followers?
You want to go?
I mean, for me, like, my brand as a producer, I was in a production group called The Rascals. It was me and Leon for a long time. And so I never really, he was the face of it, right? In the sense of like, he was on TV, he was on Victorious, so I always kind of stepped in the background. But my thing was like, I was always the one probably spending more time with the artist in the studio because he was shooting or he would be doing whatever. So he'd come write his part, do his thing, we work on production. And then I would be cutting the records with the artist. So my relationship with the artist, you know, would probably be a little bit more thicker. And for me, I didn't really focus on branding that much until it was right. Mm-hmm. And it was, for me, it was like, okay, me going into this element with Kehlani, I was like, all right, let me kind of step out more and do more press. Because even with the SZA stuff, it was like, you know, it was so much around SZA and then the element of the album, and you know, obviously Snooze was a bit massive record, but then you got Babyface involved, you got this one, you know what I'm saying? It was a lot. And then with this thing with Kehlani, she actually made it a point to where she was like, I want you to be out more in the forefront of it. And so shout out to Kay, and you know, and I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And I think it was just the right time. And I've been doing this for a long time, you know, so it was just a timing thing. So yeah, it is important. It is key. Yeah. To get more work and, you know, and outside of music. You know, I'm doing a TV show now in things like Forever season 2 on Netflix. And those things come from, you know, someone like Mara seeing and being able to put a face to my catalog and my talents and being like, wow, this guy's like Justin, who's a character on the show, and I think we could really. Season 2, we can go to the next up. You know what I'm saying? So those kind of things, like people being able to see and then match you to the idea is very important.
Yeah, I mean, you have now seen the shift from social media or just social media. How do you feel pressure to kind of, or people already know you, so you don't have to compete in that way?
Yeah, I don't necessarily feel pressure, but I understand why it's necessary. I don't feel pressure about it, but I do think it's important that when I do speak, it's because I have something to say. If I'm gonna build a brand, make sure that you have something that you that's gonna actually help benefit people, and not just talking to be talking. You know, I'm not one of those people that's just interested in giving a bunch of empty calories to people. You know? I'm just not that type of person. So for me, if the time is right, the moment is right, then yes, I have something to say. But I also want to make sure that I use that platform and that season and that moment to actually elevate other things that I care or that I'm passionate about. And it's not just about, okay, well, look at me for what? Like, there's a lot of influencers that aren't influencing people to do anything. Yeah. And so to me, it's really important that I make sure that any opportunities I'm blessed with, that it actually is used to multiply what it is that I have and help bless other people and give, make things a little bigger for other people. So that's why it's no pressure. When you're giving, there's no pressure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would say I'm not very much of like a spotlight kind of person. I don't like shy away from it, but I definitely don't seek it out. But I do, like Tony said, understand the importance of like having a brand. I kind of look at where I'm at now as like in a startup where you want to get your proof of concept. And yes, I have one song that is doing incredibly well, but like a lot of times people wonder like, what have you done for me lately? And I just know that I want to be around for a long time. So it's like right now I'm just trying to build up my proof of concept, and I'm trying to be somebody that should people hear my name and want to be involved with me, because there's other things I want to do, like have my own publishing and print, have my own management and stuff like that. And it's like, no one's gonna want to fuck with you if like you're a bad person, and if you don't have like something that, like you said, something that you can offer people. So right now it's really just building up the foundation that I'll be able to build the storefront on, and it's like when you build a church, the people will come. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
We are going to open up this to a Q&A, but I was going to ask one more question about AI. I think there's a lot of talk about, is it a threat? Is it a tool? I'm curious if any of you have experimented or played with tools, and if you think it's actually something to be concerned about, or just what's your kind of approach?
It's here. Learn it. You can utilize it. I'm not going to bash it, but I think that, look, for what we do for black music, it comes from real pain in a real place and real experience. So I can't speak to everybody else's shit, but for our stuff, I feel like it's from a real place, and I feel like that's hard to digitize or replicate. Motherfuckers been biting our style for a long time and never could get it right. So I don't know if the algorithm will be able to do it. So, but I think that, I think it's something to be aware of, and I think that it's something that could be very useful for songwriters who may not have access to producers or vocalists or things like that. It's just don't bastardize it. Don't abuse it. Don't try to pass off a fully AI prompted record as a, your creation. That's not songwriting. But using it for influence or trying to take elements from it. Why not? I mean, to me, it's no different than sampling or using a digital plugin or loops that we've used. So I mean, that's my take. I mean, once you start getting into like copyright law and things like that, it gets a little bit more sticky, but it's a tool.
Completely agree, it's a tool. If you look at the history of music, there was a time when the drum machine came out and drummers weren't working, and everybody thought that the drum machine was going to take over the industry. And then sampling was going to ruin the industry, and covers were ruining the industry, and all these things. So we've had these moments time and time again. This is just the new thing that everybody is kind of concerned about. I do think it's important for us to let this wave kind of ride for a while and let those who decide that they want to pass off their music as their own, let it happen for a minute, because I think it's going to force people to appreciate the musicality of humanity again, and connection, and all the things that we've been talking about this whole time, collaboration, and like you said, like you can't replicate what this black pain is about. You can't do it. You can tell someone else's story, but you're not telling your own. So I think, yes, use it as a tool. It is definitely valuable. I use it as a tool. Do I use it to create my music? No. But I think, like he said, I think we have to deal with the fact that there's going to be a few people who get through who happen to try to use the language of they created a song, or they wrote a song, or they have an artist, or all these things, and try to make it like, try to own it, when the reality is that they didn't actually do it. So we got to allow them to do their thing, and that's fine. But I think it makes people appreciate the real music again, and that's okay. So I don't feel threatened by it. I just think it's a tool.
And you see, like, the public rejects the fully generated AI music when artists try to pass it off. A lot. a lot. So the first thing you go on Threads or Twitter, they're like, "What the fuck is it?" You know, so you know, I haven't seen one sneak through the crack shit that people are feeling. But in our music, right? Like, do I think it'll destroy background music and TV shows? Absolutely, because there's no reason to have a composer to do it if you can do, you know, kind of white noise music. Right. But when it comes to what we do, I think it's so hard to replicate.
Well, it's missing the foundational element of what makes music resonate for people, and
Right.
I think you hear some on TikTok, and it's bad.
Right.
And for us, for Black people, we've done nothing but make lemonade out of lemons. Our entire life is built around that. So we've always, every genre we created when we had nothing.
Lemons is generous.
Yeah, real talk. You know, so we that's what we're good at. That's where we thrive anyway. So I'm actually kind of excited to see what new genres are created, what new angles that we come up with, because I know we're going to do it, but I'm just interested to see how we do it. You know, I'm not necessarily, that's why I said I'm not threatened by it, but I'm interested to see how we actually take these tools and see how we kind of make them something new. So I think that's another thing we're kind of missing right now. We haven't really created a genre in a while. And I'm excited to see what it is. I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm excited to see what we create.
Real? I'm joking.
I also think it's kind of like how money don't make you cool or real. Like, you can't AI taste or like the anointing that you get when you're like the person that's gonna carry the torch forward. Like, you just can't, like, it's impossible.
Amazing, thank you. I was going to open it up to the floor. Do you want to speak? Okay.
So when I first heard the album, I heard like A. Marie, I heard 112, I heard Usher. Could you tell me like what the challenges were with like balancing nostalgia while still like making it her own and making it like we're not copying, we're actually paying homage, but we're elevating it?
Well, a lot of what you hear when you say I hear A. Marie, you're hearing Rich Harrison.
Right.
When you say, you know, you're hearing Usher, you're hearing, you know, JD or Dre, right? So it's really just going to the folks that did it. Like the record that feels like A. Marie is me and Rich Harrison. But I'm like, yo, Rich, do Rich, and then I'll come and do what I do. You know, Dre, do Dre, and I'll come and do what I do. So I think the balance of it is, it was just trying to focus on a good song, not necessarily being, you know, copying, but just focus on just trying to do a good song. You know what I'm saying? And like the 112 record is an interpolation of some sort, right? So like we did, you know, draw inspo from that one. But the other ones are, you know, they're all original. I think it was just these are the producers that we love and that we wanted to work with. So making sure that she was writing was very important. I think that's the balance, if that answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your time. I think you touched on mentorship, and I kind of, when I was growing up and doing music, I used to thought mentorship was like being right under the person. But can you talk about a point in time where you didn't have that access and how, like, distance mentorship is still as effective as being under it if you pay attention? And maybe what point of your life was that for you, where you couldn't get access to that person, but you were astute enough to like, I'm gonna make sure I pay attention to every single point. Did you all have that, or was it always a granted access to your mentor?
Well, for me, it was making sure when I contacted the people that I knew I needed advice from or guidance from, I had something to offer them first. So I didn't go to people. I've never gone to anybody that I've worked with looking for a handout. I made sure I made whatever it is that they needed. I tried to make their life better or easier or smoother or whatever. You know, I'll speak to Babyface. Like, he wasn't necessarily a mentor to me. We worked together on an album 15 years ago that just never came out. And we built a great chemistry, and he came to me and was like, yo, I'm thinking about partnering with you. What do you think? And I'm like, you're Babyface. Why wouldn't I? You know, very similar to the Kehlani thing. Like, yeah, I'm going to do it. But I also made sure that when we sat down and talked, one of our first conversation was, I know how this works, and every time we do a record, it's going to be your name first. It's going to be you on the cameras. It's going to be this, that, and the other. And so we were very intentional about how we created our business first. And I also made sure I let him know that I was going to make sure his life was easy. So when I was in, because he gave me access to the studio, his studio that he already owned, I had access at all times. So I also made sure there was no drama in the studio. He never had to worry about the studio being dirty. He never had to worry about unnecessary people being in the studio that he didn't know. I made sure if anybody was at the studio, he was informed about it, whether he was in or out of town. Those are little things that I did just to make sure he had some sort of peace of mind, because he's an introvert already. And so I wanted to make sure he understood, like, I'm going to make sure that your life is easier. And even when Khris and those guys started coming around, we'd have conversations about it, but we never had any trouble. So there was no reason to worry about any kind of issues happening at the studio. You know what I mean? So I always tried, just to answer your question, I just tried to make sure that I made whoever's I needed advice from, I made their life easier, and I had something to offer them first. And then I made sure that I wasn't going to them to make them do the work. I was just getting direction. You know what I'm saying? So make sure that if you're going to anybody, that it's not necessarily looking for a handout or a door being opened, but I'm just I have all these ideas and I have these things that I'm putting together. I just need direction. And I want to make sure that I'm avoiding detours. And in the process, how can I make your life easier? You see what I'm saying? I think that's the easier way to help people who that you're looking to, have mentored. Yeah.
I think we have two more.
Hello, my name is Neff. But as a songwriter who has a large selection of different songs, I've just been feeling like I don't want to hold on to it for too long. I just want to create like an album myself. I'm not the best singer, but I just want to create something to show for like a portfolio. Do you think it's better to do that, or to like hold on to it and then just pitch individual songs and just kind of wait, do the waiting game? Or do you think I should just like put my music out there and just to have something to show for it, and then kind of network through that album that I made?
I think it's best to kind of keep them tucked, in my opinion. If you're not an artist, if you don't want to put, right? Like, sometimes artists can get very, like, weird about songs being out in the marketplace already, and then you trying to get them to cut. Like, I remember there was a few records that there were issues with that. I would just put them on a SoundCloud or whatever link that, whatever service that you use to kind of hold your music, Dropbox, whatever, and just start pitching your music to people directly. You got to kind of just be, if the goal is to work with certain artists, it's like find the people that work with those artists and hound them. And hound. You have to be relentless. You just have to be a dog. You can't, you can't, it's not just going to happen overnight. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't be putting the music out, especially if you're not a singer and you don't really, why would you do that? I don't know what the point would be. You know what I'm saying? Would be of doing that besides, like, hopefully somebody hears it. And a lot of times artists, sometimes people can't hear past demos if they're not done right. There's some that can. Like, Beyonce's great. Like, Rich Harrison sent me the Crazy in Love demo, and it sounded a mess. Like, he did that shit drunk after the club in no key. Like, it was just crazy. But Beyonce heard it, and she loves records like that. And she can, she knows how to make it her own. But there's some artists where, like, if it's not done right, someone like yourself, if you're not a singer, use AI to kind of get the voice down. That's a great tool for you to use, But yeah, I don't know if that answered. I would keep them private, personally, but that's just my opinion.
Last question over here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The question I have coming up, and I'm gonna take y'all back in your early times. There's a fear of sending. You mentioned it too, Khris. There's a fear of having your music stolen, if I said it right. Which can actually, you can miss out on opportunities.
Yeah.
What are some of the routes that y'all have taken to secure sending your music out? Sometimes you need a middle person. You don't have the direct relationship, but it's a scary road because they can take your idea and have somebody else recreate it. So what were some of the things that you've done to kind of like secure yourself?
So I'm not trying to give you a legal analysis, but whenever you create a song, let's say you're using Logic, Pro Tools, whatever, and you bounce it, once it's bounced, it's copywritten. Once you create the file, it's copywritten. So you could take that in the court and say, hey, no, that's what happens when you get sued, right? You say, hey, this record was made, I don't know, whenever, like, whatever year, whatever time, it's time-stamped, and that's your argument, right? You can't be afraid of that kind of shit. I never really was scared of that. It's like, if you're gonna take my stuff, I'm gonna sue you, and I just keep a mental log over who I sent it to, right? I've had 2 instances where a kid tried to say that he participated on a song. I never met this kid in life. Nobody associated with the record had ever met this kid. He was like in random part of Chicago, and was trying to. It was just a mess. It was like, what are you talking about? No one's ever met you before. But you have to have damn, I'm forgetting the legal term, but you need. There's elements of copyright claim. You got to basically find a direct relation, right? Like you have to have a direct access. You need access, right? You need access, and then it needs to have you need access and similarity. But the similarity argument can be the defense for the similarity argument is that if the chords are commonplace, right? A lot of my records are common chords, right? Without proven access, you can't win the case, if that makes any kind of sense, right? So you can have chords that are the same, but if you can't prove access, then it's usually going to fall apart. And it's harder when the song isn't commercially released, right? So the way that you kind of protect yourself is tracking your access, right? You have to track who you sent it to, and then, from there, at a certain point, it becomes a web. And if it's not a sure shot, then you kind of got to just lift your hands up and take the L, But kind of documenting your access, I guess, is the most important part.
And there's also some practical apps and websites that you can use to store and upload your music that when you send it out, people only get limited access to those songs anyway, like Sound Credit and Disco, all those. I would say anything that you create, go ahead and upload it there. Make sure that when you're emailing your records out, don't allow them to be downloaded unless you've approved that it's allowed to be downloaded. Not that that's guaranteed, but it's just another layer of, security, as you say. You can see who has access to it, who's downloaded it, all of those things. So you have some sort of track record as to what's happened with your music, so that if it does ever come to that, like you said, you have a lot of proof of what has happened with your song, and so you can actually back it up that way. But like the other side is, if you are a true talented person, you can do it again. So the fear of someone taking one song that you did and you've written thousands, do you really care? You get what I'm saying? What fight is worth it? Now, if this is your first time and maybe you've never had any sort of success, or again, you stumbled on a record that just happened to work, then you got a lot more to fight for. But if I can get, this particular song didn't work, but I promise you we'll get in tomorrow and I can write another one, your level of fear when it comes to that kind of stuff just kind of goes away.
Well, thank you guys again, and thank you to Tiffany and the 100%ers for putting on tonight. Let's give a round of applause. And thank you guys for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.